I must not remember. I don't want to remember. I cannot remember. But I mustn't forget. I promised them I wouldn't. Never shall I forget that nocturnal silence which deprived me, for all eternity, of the desire to live. Never shall I forget those moments which murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams to dust. Never shall I forget those flames which consumed my faith forever. Never shall I forget these things, even if I am condemned to live as long as God Himself. Never. And I have to remember. One day I was able to get up after gathering all my strength. I wanted to see myself in the mirror hanging on the opposite wall. I had not seen myself since the ghetto. From the depths of the mirror, a corpse gazed back at me. But I have to remember. I, as a witness, have moral obligation to try to prevent the enemy from enjoying one last victory by allowing his crimes to be erased from human memory. For that, I have to remember again. If it was not a true account, it would have been labeled as a dystopian work, which might have been banned for its extreme cruelty. And it happened less than 100 years ago in human civilization. Welcome to the BOOKBIBULI Podcast. Today, we have Aneesha Chopra with us, who is going to be reviewing Night by Elie Wiesel. Hello, Aneesha. We are really glad to have you over.
Hello, my name's Aneesha Chopra, and I'm here to talk about Elie Wiesel's The Night. He wrote it about a personal experience that he had in the camps during the Holocaust.
It is obvious that the war which Hitler and his accomplices waged was a war not only against Jewish men, women, and children, but also against Jewish religion, Jewish culture, Jewish tradition, and therefore Jewish memory. As did Elie Wiesel, I have also not been able to still accept that the world remains silent. What are your thoughts about it, Aneesha?
I genuinely don't understand how people were able to be silent and not do anything about what was going on around them, especially when the Jews were first being taken from their homes. People were being segregated. Jews were being hated on for just being Jewish. Everyone other than Jewish people were watching and letting it happen and not saying anything about that. And that's most of the reasons why the government was originally able to do this and get so much power, because no one was saying anything and no one was questioning what was going on around them.
The Gestapo hangs a young boy, but he does not lose his life swiftly. He was too young and too small to break his breath from his weight. Where is God? Where is He? Someone behind me asked. Yet the only response is total silence throughout the camp. For more than half an hour, the child in the noose stayed there, struggling between life and death, dying in slow agony under our eyes. And we had to look him full in the face. He was still alive when I passed in front of him. His tongue was still red. His eyes were not yet glazed. Behind me, I heard the same man asking, "Where is God now?" And I heard a voice within me answer him, "Where is He? Here He is. He is hanging here on this gallows." Faith was lost forever. So, Aneesha, don't you think that if you witness something like this, faith would be lost? Shouldn't it be?
I believe Elie Wiesel talking about how faith was lost forever and how he didn't feel as if there was a God anymore and asking where He was is completely justified. When you're in a headspace, as he was, you don't know that anything is going to change. He didn't know that the camps were going to be liberated. He had no idea, so he had no hope for the future. He thought he was going to die there, which was a very possible thing, and he had no sense of hope or God or praying because of all of the tragedy that went on around him. Especially seeing a boy being hung is not something that would make you feel like there is faith and that there is a God, because why would God have something be so cruel?
That's so right, Aneesha. In the book, he says that my father's presence was the only thing that stopped me from allowing myself to die. I had no right to let myself die. What would he do without me? I was his only support. In spite of myself, a prayer rose in my heart to that God in whom I no longer believed. My Lord, my God, Lord of the universe, give me strength never to do what Rabbi Lau's son has done. Throughout the book, I found that the father and son bond was exceptional. They were both each other's support, which was really, really nice to see, especially in those strained times. Did you feel that as well?
I think that the father-son bond was very important in Elie's life because obviously they have a strong bond, but they both were the reasons for keeping each other alive. Elie said that he wanted to stay alive, and his motivation to stay alive was for his father, and his father was probably feeling the exact same thing. They needed that support system, and that bond really created that support system when they both had no hope. But the only thing that kept Elie from letting himself die was he felt bad for his father and didn't want to leave him alone. So in a way, his father and the bond that he has with his father saved his life.
Yeah, a lot of times, it is these bonds that make us keep going on. But in the concentration camps, it was every man to himself. In fact, he says it as well. Here, every man has to fight for himself and not think of anyone else. Here, there are no fathers, no brothers, no friends. Everyone lives and dies for himself alone. It was a very, very cruel time. And, people were just not into comforting each other. They were turning against each other. What do you think about that?
I think that being in that certain headspace, the inhumanity and cruelty towards one another is understandable to some point. I feel like these men have no one that is looking out for them other than themselves. And honestly, it's survival of the fittest. Whoever works the most, whoever does the right things, whoever keeps to themselves is the one that has the best potential to survive in the camps. The prisoners around each other are each other's competition. Whether if I want to save myself, then I have no issue in putting someone else's life at risk so that I can survive, which is the exact headspace that they would be in, because they don't have anyone else looking out for them. They have to do it for themselves, no matter the cost.
That is absolutely right, because it was not only the Nazis, it was even his fellow Jews, even himself. There were so many things which were a letdown. It's strange, but do you think, Aneesha, that in the present day scenario, where we still have war in the present day world, do you think we've learned the lessons that Holocaust taught us?
I think in present day, the world has definitely learned a lot from everything that happened in the Holocaust, and it's definitely not something that's going to ever happen again. We definitely know the signs of when someone is gaining too much power, such as Hitler did. And And I think that the world can learn that discriminating against a whole culture and religion is insane, and we should just let people live the way that they want to live, and we have no control over that.
He says yet again, "Never shall I forget that smoke. Never shall I forget the little faces of the children coming in truckload and thrown in open pit furnaces, whose bodies I saw turned into wreaths of smoke beneath a silent blue sky." My God, it is so traumatic to even think that something like this could have happened. And I don't know, we at BOOKBIBULI wanted to take this up as, the most horrific event, the most horrible of events that can happen in the month of Halloween, because this is the month of horror, and there is no greater horror that we have witnessed in the recent times. And we have tried to provide a platform for this discussion.
This is a great platform to review books. You guys have created a safe space for people to talk and analyze different books and texts, and I think it's a great platform that should keep doing what it's doing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aneesha, for your kind words, for the lucid discussion, and for being with us today. Now, to those of you who have not read this book, let me tell you a little about Elie Wiesel. He says that after observing a 10-year vow of silence about the Holocaust in 1956, Wiesel published "And the World Remains Silent," an 800-page account of his life during the Holocaust. It was written in Yiddish. In 1958, he condensed his work and translated it. The work was translated into English and published in 1960 as Night. Though a memoir, Elie could not write the book with him as the narrator. It was too close and too painful. He wants to distinguish his narrator from himself. It is almost impossibly painful for a survivor to write about his Holocaust experience, and the mechanism of a narrator allows Wiesel to distance himself somewhat from the experience, to look in from the outside. The Nazi atrocities were so unimaginable and inconceivable that merely by bearing witness and surviving, Wiesel is performing an invaluable service to humanity. He enables us to better understand a horrific historical moment that is impossible to imagine in the abstract. 6 million European Jews had been murdered. There's no other word for it. They were murdered in cold blood, along with millions of gypsies, gay people, and others whom the Nazis considered undesirable. That was the final solution developed by Hitler and his counselors. By the end of World War II, more than 35 million people had died, over half of them civilians. Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland, the largest and deadliest of the camps, Auschwitz was the site of more than 1,300,000 Jewish deaths. It is a brutally truthful and hard-hitting book, which presents the reality of the Holocaust in its bare form. So be advised to restrict this book to children who can handle blunt and unsparing portrayal of a real world, preferably after 16. This book is for readers who are comfortable with complex and heavy content. This book will hit you as hard as the reality should. We would recommend it only for mature readers. If you're over the reading age of 14 and say a reading competence of 7. So many aspects of the Holocaust are incomprehensible, but perhaps the most difficult to understand is how could the world remain silent? It is the silence and passivity that allowed the Holocaust to continue. Wiesel's writing of Night is itself an attempt to break the silence, to tell loudly and boldly of the atrocities of the Holocaust, and in this way to try to prevent anything so horrible from ever happening again. And we are just trying to add our voice to his cause. But the question remains, did he succeed? Look around.